The story of bread begins with wheat. Here is a field of ripe wheat. And here is the combine that threshes the wheat. A tractor pulls the combine. The combine cuts the wheat and takes out the grains. This truck will carry the grain away. Now watch. This boy pulls a cord, and the wheat pours out of the combine into large sacks in the truck. Now, the combine will thresh more wheat, and the truck will carry away the sacks of wheat to the flour mill. And this is the mill, where the wheat from many farms is made into flour. Now we are inside the mill. The wheat is going through large pipes to a machine. It blows the dust and dirt away from the wheat. Then it goes to a cleaning machine. If we look inside, we see the machine cleaning the wheat. When the wheat grains are clean, they go to the roller mills. These machines crush the grain. The grains of wheat have to pass between revolving rollers made of hard steel. This is how the wheat looks after going through the first set of steel rollers. These machines, called bolters, are really giant sifters. The bolters separate the coarse part of the grains from the fine parts. The coarse part runs down here. Farther along the line of bolters, the fine part is sifted out through very fine silk cloth. This is flour. The coarse material goes through more rollers. And finally, the clean white flour speeds along its way to the packing room. In the packing room, this machine fills large sacks with flour. And this machine sews the sacks tight so the flour can't run out. Now the sacks of flour are ready to go to the bakery. And here is the bakery where the wheat flour is made into bread. Into the bakery goes the flour, down through a chute in 100-pound sacks. This man empties a sack of flour. This machine mixes different kinds of flour together. In this large room, we see the next step in making bread. One baker measures the right amount of water. Another baker puts large cakes of yeast into a mixer. Yeast makes the bread rise. He takes tablets of vitamins and minerals. They enrich the bread. He adds water. The electric mixer stirs the yeast, vitamins, minerals, and water all together. The baker draws off this mixture into a pail. The mixture of yeast, vitamins, minerals, and water goes into the dough mixing machine. Now it's time to weigh the flour to get just enough. This baker then puts the flour into the dough mixer through this large funnel. The flour, water, and yeast mixture are mixed into the sponge inside the mixing machine. Electricity runs the machine. At exactly the right moment, the mixer opens and tosses out the sponge. The sponge goes into a large trough. The trough then goes into a warm room where the sponge will rise or swell. The sponge stands for about 5 hours in this warm room. In that time, the yeast makes the sponge rise until it fills the trough. For the next step, we must go back to the mixing room. To make sponge become dough, shortening and milk solids and sugar and salt are needed. Into the mixer, the baker first pours the shortening and milk solids. And next, the sugar and salt. Into the mixer they go. And now, the risen sponge is put back into the mixer to be made into dough. It is thoroughly mixed. It is left to rise again. From the chute, it goes into the divider, as this machine is called, because it divides the large mass of dough into smaller parts, 6 pieces at a time. Each lump of dough is exactly the right weight to make a loaf of bread. The lumps are carried along to the rounder, as this machine is called, because it rolls or rounds the dough into balls. These balls of dough are rolled flat by this giant rolling pin. The flattened dough is given time to rise again. Then it is molded and put into baking pans. The pans are carried along on a conveyor. From the conveyor, they are placed on large racks. The racks go into a steam room. Now the dough will rise some more. Then the pans go to the baker. He puts them in the oven carefully. He doesn't want the dough to fall. See how large the oven is. See how long it is. Through a side door, we see the bread slowly traveling along the moving floor of the oven. The trip through the hot oven takes about half an hour. At the end of its half-hour trip through the oven, the bread comes out and it is baked just right. The hot bread slowly cools on these racks. Crusty, golden brown, fresh, enriched bread. Now the loaves slide and tumble down the chutes to the slicing machine. The knives of the slicer cut a whole loaf at once. Slice, slice, slice. Again, the sliced loaves are taking a ride. On this trip, they are going to the wrapping machine. Its mechanical fingers wrap and seal wax paper around each loaf. Fresh and wrapped and sealed, the bread is ready to make its last trip, a trip to our neighborhood food store. Delicious bread, fresh and clean, brought every day to the neighborhood food store for you and for me.